Distraction Makers just released a video about Pre-Modern, which, if you don't know, Pre-Modern is this fan-made Magic format that only uses old cards. That's about as much as I know about it. And part of the inspiration for Pre-Modern is that you don't want to play with the modern Magic cards, with the Universes Beyond, with the confetti, full art frame, anime foils. You like the old stuff. You want to collect and buy and invest in the old stuff. That's what it's about. It's interesting because you think about Wizards of the Coast and what their job is as a company. What's interesting is that people need to understand that Wizards of the Coast is a part of Hasbro, is a company, and companies have a fiduciary duty, which is just essentially just a duty. That's the fancy word they use, though, is fiduciary, because they represent their shareholders. And there's all these memes, right, about, you know, another day going to office to add shareholder value. But that's literally what your job is. When you get hired as an executive, or even just as like the average Joe, you know, somebody who's part of design or strategy or the economists that make decisions about print runs, their job is to maximize profit and to do whatever they think will maximize profit. You know what doesn't maximize profit? Pre-modern. And this is what I mean. So there's a couple misconceptions and a couple concepts I want to talk about, and it might be a little sporadic, but I think this will be a good and entertaining conversation overall. The first thing I'll touch on is the notion of buy cards, don't buy booster packs. Buying booster packs is technically what Wizards gets paid to make, right? So Wizards of the Coast, they print products, they randomize them for the most part. There are secret layers that aren't randomized, but most of their products are randomized, put into boxes, shipped to distribution centers. This is another kind of interesting thing about the economics, is that Wizards gets a chunk of change from distribution, and that's independent of how well distribution's able to do selling it to stores until, well, I guess it's not completely independent, right? Because the hope is for Wizards of the Coast, they want something like Modern Horizons 2 or Final Fantasy, where it sells out. Because if it sells out of distribution, distribution's wanting more, then Wizards can sell more to distribution. So who buys from distribution? Game stores. Wizards of the Coast has a rule that distribution can only sell to brick and mortar game stores. There's some funny business that people speculate goes on, but for the most part, Wizards prints cards and sells to distribution. Distribution sells to game stores, and game stores sell to you and me. So when you buy a booster box from a game store, you are paying a game store who did pay distribution, who did pay Wizards of the Coast. And as you buy more product, or as everyone buys more product, the game store runs out, which orders more from distribution, which runs out, that orders more from Wizards of the Coast. And that's how Wizards of the Coast gets paid. What about if you buy a booster box from a random guy on, a scalper, an evil scalper? Well, that evil scalper got it fundamentally from a game store, from somebody who has distribution. Or I guess, maybe Target was selling a good deal or something like that, right? But got it from somewhere, and that somewhere has one less box because of that scalper. So scalpers are helping out the ecosystem too, buying and selling booster boxes. Okay, well, what about the prof people that only buy singles? They are subverting the system, right? Well, kinda. So singles, Wizards of the Coast doesn't print singles, they print boxes, right? But the boxes get opened up and turn into singles. So what happens if the singles run out? You got to open boxes. And people do this. If the expected value of a box is good, people will open it. And so at the end of the day, demand for singles equals demand for boxes. You can say, like, I'm not going to support Wizards. I'm just going to buy singles on the secondary market. And as long as those singles come out of boxes that Wizards prints, you are supporting Wizards. Now, what if the singles that you want do not come out of boxes that Wizards prints, aka pre-modern, or just old formats in general? What about Commander? Once upon a time, Commander was filled with cards that were old. But now cards in Commander feel new. Similar with Modern, right? Modern, the format, not pre-modern, but Modern as a competitive 1v1 format. It used to be a lot of old cards, and then Wizards did master sets, and then they did Modern Horizons sets, and now a lot of Modern is new cards. What you're probably picking up on is the reality, which is that Wizards of the Coast does not make money from single sales unless those singles are coming out of boxes that they're actively printing. The second that they stop printing a product, those singles trading hands, the demand for those singles going up. Yes, it creates some potential reprint equity, right? So like the One Ring. The One Ring is not a card that Wizards is actively printing, but with the price going up, what are the odds that they're going to reprint it in the Hobbit set later this year? I guess, well, yeah, it could be on like a bonus sheet or something. I don't think they would put that into standard. The original Lord of the Rings set was not in standard ever. It was just straight to Modern. So yeah, they're probably not going to print the One Ring into standard, but they might reprint it. And so yes, there is equity that gets built up that allows Wizards to reprint, but they're not making money from that. So when you buy and sell One Rings right now, that does not create any incentive for people to buy things and open things and move things around that gets Wizards of the Coast money right now. It could add up and they can cash out in the future, but it doesn't help the bottom line right now. On the other hand, if you're opening up something that is in standard, like Final Fantasy, if you're opening it up hoping to get Vivi, or if you're buying copies of Vivi, that will increase the demand for boxes, and that increased demand for boxes will encourage more people to open boxes, which does help Wizards of the Coast bottom line today, which is the job. The job of companies, it's not ideal, but it is a short term, can you get the stock up now? And you also need to get the stock up in the future, but you need to get the stock up now by selling stuff now. So, pre-modern, where does that fit into this? Well, like I said, and like we've talked about, Wizards isn't making any money from pre-modern. They're not making money from people trading copies of Standstill or, these old cards that are reserved list. Wizards is not able to cash out on those like they tried to with Magic 30th. And that didn't go well for Wizards. Magic 30th, by the way, is the greatest own goal that Wizards of the Coast has ever done, which is, just in case you weren't there, because 2023 was the 30th anniversary of Magic, and to celebrate, Wizards of the Coast decided to sell a Secret Lair style, so you'd have to go to their website and buy it. For $1,000, you could get 4 booster packs, normal-sized booster packs, that printed original alpha, but with special backs and borders and frames, so they're not legal. They considered this not a reprinting of, an actual reprint of reserve list cards, because they are effectively proxies. This did so much harm to the game. I am familiar with selling proxies, and the people who sold proxies saw booms in sales after this happened. I believe this happened late 2022. And so 2023, 2024, proxy sales went through the roof, because people are like, if Wizards is just printing proxies and trying to sell them, why shouldn't I just go on Etsy and buy proxies, right? What else happened? Demand for reserve list went down. Prices crashed, which doesn't necessarily hurt Wizards of the Coast, but there was a consumer backlash. People left Magic. People didn't like playing Magic, didn't like Wizards of the Coast. It hurt their brand. And we also saw, this was, not necessarily because of the Magic 30th edition, but there was also, at the same time, a lot of sets that were doing very poorly. Distribution could not move these boxes. Stores couldn't move these boxes. And so, what happened with Magic 30th is that it came out, and I remember, because everybody was logging on, getting in cart, not to buy it, but to check if other people were buying it. And after 6 hours, they took the sale down and said the sale has concluded. But it wasn't because they sold out. They did not sell out. They didn't sell very many. And what's wild too is that even 3-4 years later, those boxes are still, it's hard to sell them for more than, or for a profit, I should say, because if you sell it for 1,200, you're breaking even after shipping and fees. And so anyways, just this incredible event, Magic 30th edition, $1,000, $250 for a single booster pack that contained fake cards in it. Absolutely wild. And that was Wizards trying to capitalize on old cards. Wizards has been trying for a long time now, and this is what I kind of want to point out and talk about, is Wizards has been trying for a long time to figure out how to crack the code, which is, this is the dream. Nobody care about any of the cards that are out of print. If people are only interested in the new stuff, Wizards will make the most money. Ideally, nobody will trade or buy or sell any of the cards that aren't currently being printed by Wizards of the Coast. That's the dream. Obviously, that's not realistic. That's not what happens. What's interesting is formats like Commander kind of subvert it, right? Because you need heuristic studies and Smothering Tides and cards that are not in print. Although we do see that in these sets like Ninja Turtles, when they reprint Trouble in Pairs, and Final Fantasy, when they reprint Heuristic Study, right? They're sprinkling in these old cards. And so, it helps them sell boxes. And so they're trying to figure out, how can we sell the cards that people play with, and how do we get people to not play with the cards that we aren't selling? That's the dream. That's the goal for Wizards of the Coast, to make the most money, which is their duty, which is their job. It's what they get paid to do. And you say like, well, I'm not a bad person. Yeah, well, I don't know, man. If you're getting paid great corporate salary with great benefits and great whatever, you're happy to help a company make profit. It's a win-win. So definitely don't blame these people. But that's what's going on. So how has Wizards done this unsuccessfully? Well, Magic 30th edition was not successful. Some of the original collector boxes were not successful. Commander Masters was not successful. What's wild is when Commander Masters first came out, people really rejected it. The price point was just too high. It was $200 for a collector box that had 4 packs in it, $300 for a draft box, and $400 for a set box. And people just weren't down. And so they've had a hard time figuring out what are the right price points where we can sell and take advantage of collectors and evil investors and players and get the most money out of it. And they're also trying to figure out, how do we reprint cards and keep them in circulation? How do we make money off of the cards that people are playing with? So where they've really knocked it out of the park is with their collector products. It is with like Modern Horizons type stuff, and with their Commander decks. So where they haven't won is with Standard. But let's start with the areas. Well, actually, I guess I'll first start with where they didn't win and then jump into where they won. Standard, they're not winning. Ideally, everyone would play Standard. Standard is the definition of playing with cards that Wizards is currently printing, because everything in Standard is free game to reprint. That is the dream. If Wizards of the Coast has a healthy Standard, they're going to be guaranteed healthy margins. Modern used to not be this way, but look, with Modern Horizons, which was a clever idea, they have turned Modern from a game where they could only capitalize and make money off of it based off of these master products to Modern Horizons, where they're able to invent new cards that not just are those new cards demanded, but it artificially rotates the format, right? Like Tarmogoyf isn't a popular card anymore. Neither is Snapcaster Mage. And even though they do reprint these cards still, I think mostly for nostalgia is why Snapcaster Mage gets reprinted all the time. But regardless of kind of these modern staples getting like rotated out, there's just so much money that Wizards has made from turning Modern into not playing with old cards, but playing with new cards and taking advantage of that. Commander Commander used to be a format where you take your cards that you already have that are out of print and you build a deck out of them. With Commander products and cards focused on Commander, Commander is now, there is the set list of powerhouse cards or cards that make sense to go inside of any deck. I'm thinking of like the enchantments that just go with your synergies and strategies, the Caretaker's Talent that goes in your token decks, or the Lumra Bellow of the Woods that goes into land decks, or some other Bloomburrow card that's really cool. Bloomburrow was such a sick set, man. Anyway, so Wizards has figured out how to, you notice there just aren't a lot of old cards that fit naturally into a lot of Commander decks anymore. There's a lot of new cards that are really good and really exciting for your Commander decks. And that is part of the strategy, is how do I get you interested in these new cards? You're buying, even if you're buying singles from these Commander decks, that incentivizes other people to break these Commander decks down and sell the singles. And so that's why you see these cards that are catering towards Commander, that are new, that are still in print, that Wizards is able to make money right now from. Another way that Wizards has been very successful is their collector boxes. So this is wild. And this is actually probably the clearest example of this, that I'm excited to talk about. Then we'll kind of end after that. Assassin's Creed collector booster box came out. The special foils in that box were hundreds of dollars, $400, $500. The serialized cards were $1,000 plus. What happened 6 months later? Prices dropped. Edge of Eternities, the headliner card, the Solthura Void or whatever it's called. When it first came out, how much was it? Thousands of bucks. How much is it today? Much less. Avatar: Last Airbender, headliner cards, they're etched foils, thousands of bucks or hundreds of bucks. How much are they today? Less. What is going on? How come these cards drop in value? Well, there's hype. There's hype, and people want the new shiny thing today. Whatever's coming out now, whatever's new and shiny now, that is what they want today. And then what happens over time is the next new and shiny thing comes out. And the next new and shiny thing is then what people want. And people forget about the old shiny thing. This is incredible, especially for collector booster boxes, because Wizards of the Coast doesn't reprint collector booster boxes. They do one print run and done. So they're making a payday once, and they just need people to be hyped about it once. And then if people stop caring about it, that is okay. Now, of course, we do see that collector booster boxes in recent years rise in value, which is pretty cool. But, yeah, I mean, you just think about past sets. You think about like Duskmourn and the specialty foils from there, or Karlov Manor and the specialty foils, or Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Just these older sets. You think like who's freaking out about a Mana Crypt in the Outlaws of Thunder Junction that's in the specialty foil? Nobody, right? I mean, I think the card is relatively cheap now. I think it's like less than $150. And so it just goes to show that Wizards has figured out, I'm not sure exactly how they did it, but Wizards has figured out how to get everyone excited about stuff for just a couple months and then move on. And that is the dream. That is the dream. Hype up the collector boxes, sell them all, make your distribution partners happy, make the game stores happy, and you're very happy. You don't overprint, and boom, you get this nice solid payday. But people, because the problem would come, the alternative that could have happened but isn't happening, is that people open those collector booster boxes. They open Final Fantasy collector booster boxes and they're like, this is the coolest thing ever. I'm never going to stop just being excited about this. And then the new thing comes out and people are still opening Final Fantasy. And the next set comes out and people are still opening Final Fantasy. That would be a disaster. That'd be a disaster, but that's not what we see. When the new things come out, people get excited. And yeah, Spider-Man was an exception. People didn't get stoked out of their mind for Spider-Man. And boxes don't necessarily go to the moon, right? Like avatars haven't. But they do well, and people get stoked. An example of this, modern example, is the Bitter Bloom Bearer, or the Bitter Bloom Bearer. That card, I don't think that card is good. Bitter Blossom isn't good. It hasn't been good for a long time. It hasn't been played in Modern since, I swear, like in the past 10 years, like over 10 years ago. And putting it on a body makes it easier to die. It's not a good card. But the hype is there. Like, I swear, Bitter Bloom Bearer will be a relatively cheap card, like $10 less card in a year. That's my prediction anyway. But the hype, people are excited for it today. They're willing to spend 20, 30 plus bucks for the specialty copies. And of course, there's the serialized one, which people are very excited about. And there's some artistic and special kind of sentimental memorial value to it. So I no doubts the, serialized cards can remain valuable, but the price will go down. Just that's what's happening with all these sets, is they get super hyped and then the hype dies away, but the hype goes up for the next set and people get excited about. We'll see if people get excited about Ninja Turtles. I know that there's these signed cards. I don't think Ninja Turtles is going to do well. The prediction I made a few weeks ago was that Ninja Turtles collector booster boxes would sell for $400 each on release weekend. And honestly, I think they'll sell for less now. I'm adjusting my predictions. Saffron Olive with MTG Goldfish did his like open a bunch of boxes video, and he was trying to like pump the set more, like, oh yeah, these feel good, this is fun. But it's very similar to Spider-Man. In my opinion, it's just there's not enough exciting things to open to warrant opening one of those booster boxes. So we'll see. Anyways, thanks for watching. If you made it this far, hi, my name's Nick. Time to introduce myself. I run a company called Capital Catalyst, and if you would subscribe, that would mean the world to me. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.